All right, after 2 weeks of this shutdown, Americans are wondering what exactly it could mean for their families and themselves. Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is here to answer some of the most searched online questions about just that. So, Selena, the first question here is whether or not Veterans Affairs benefits will continue amid the government shutdown. What do we know?
So, Kira, the good news is that when it comes to Veterans Affairs, key services will continue. So that means benefits will continue to be serviced and delivered. And in addition to that, VA medical centers will also remain open and provide all services. You've also got suicide prevention programs, homelessness services, and caregiver support that will continue. But look, VA, like all the other departments, they are dealing with furloughs. According to the VA's contingency plans, they say that roughly 15,000 out of the VA's more than 460,000 employees have been furloughed. The department says that during a shutdown, they stopped providing career counseling. They closed down regional benefits offices and certain call centers will close. But Kira, the bottom line here is that the most critical services of the VA, they do remain open at this moment.
So a lot of people also wondering about the furloughed federal workers. Are they going to be able to collect unemployment benefits?
Yeah, they may be able to. So according to guidance from the Office of Management and Budget, it depends on the state. The rules vary, with some states requiring a certain waiting period. The OMB also says that you should file your claim in the state where your last official duty station was located. And more generally, experts are saying that you should file your claim as soon as possible, since it can take 2 to 3 weeks after you file your claim to receive your first benefits paycheck. Another key note here, though, for furloughed employees who are looking to do this is that workers who receive unemployment benefits and then they get that retroactive pay later, they will have to repay those benefits. So that is something really important to keep in mind. But if we just look at the big picture here, Kira, we're talking about more than 700,000 federal workers furloughed. You've got some 4,000 who have been fired. That is not normal in a government shutdown. That's what you were talking about in your last segment, with the potential for thousands of more to be fired, Kira.
A lot of people asking about their passport. Are they able to get it during the government shutdown?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. The good news here is that if you are concerned about getting your passport renewed or getting a new one issued, you don't need to be concerned, because all of that servicing and processing should remain, because it's considered an essential service under the Bureau of Consular Affairs. Now, visa and passport operations, they're also self-funded by the fees that Americans pay to process and receive them. So they are separately funded, and processing times, again, should remain the same. So good news on this front.
Good. All right. Also, there was a special election last month for a congressional seat in Arizona. Voters actually elected Adelita Grijalva for that seat, but hasn't been sworn in yet. A lot of people have been searching whether or not she could be sworn in during the shutdown. I thought this was interesting. Can you just give us a little wrap on her and what we know about her status?
Yeah, Kira, so earlier this week, a group of House Democrats actually marched into Speaker Johnson's office demanding that she be sworn in, but Speaker Johnson is refusing to do so while the government is shut down. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson, he is insisting that he's not going to do it while the House is out of session. But look, there's no rule against this. Number one, the House can continue to operate even when the government is shut down. And number two, the House can swear in lawmakers even when the House is not meeting for legislative business. So there's no rule against this happening. Grijalva herself, she's also been sounding the alarm. She has been speaking up, saying that she wants to be sworn in. She also claims that House Speaker Johnson is stalling in order to avoid a floor vote on releasing the Epstein files. Grijalva is poised to provide the final signature to force a floor vote on that, Kira.
And Selena, there's actually this question that's being highly searched right now, which is kind of interesting. And the question is, does President Trump want the government shut down? It comes as there's this new polling, and we just talked about it here with Perry, that 58% of Americans do blame Republicans. But specifically, if you see the wording here, when you're asking about President Trump, they say they blame him. 58% of them do a great deal or quite a bit for this government shutdown. But what more is the White House saying about this Senate impasse?
Yeah, Kane. Well, first of all, when it comes to that polling, it is interesting because it shows that Americans are moving towards blaming the Republicans, the Democrats, and the president almost equally for this shutdown. But look, the finger pointing continues. The White House press secretary today again blamed Democrats for the shutdown, saying that they are playing partisan politics with all of this. Caroline Leavitt is also blasting the federal judge that has ordered the administration to stop firing federal workers. This comes after the White House has laid off more than 4,000 workers, with the administration saying they could lay off more than 10,000 federal workers in total. Now, the White House continues to say that these layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of this government shutdown. But Kana, you and I know that the reality is that the White House had already been doing these layoffs. They had already been whittling down federal agencies well before this government shutdown began. But the president here is trying to maximize the pressure on Democrats to get them to cave on their health care demands. But as you've been talking about in your previous segment, for now, Democrats are standing firm that they're not budging until those health care subsidies are extended.
Right, and it sounds like they're not buying into Thune's promise there that maybe there could be a vote coming up on that. The other highly searched question, Selena, is when do members of Congress get paid during a shutdown? This, of course, is coming, as we know. They're done voting for the week, right? They're going to go home. They're going to pack it up for the week on a Thursday.
Yeah, as we talk about these thousands of workers who've been laid off and the hundreds of thousands of workers that have been furloughed, the very people, Kana, who could end this shutdown, which is members of Congress, they still get paid no matter how long the shutdown goes on for. And that's because their pay is protected under the Constitution. Now, the average amount that a member of Congress makes is $174,000. That is how much most members of Congress make, although members in leadership make more. Again, their pay is protected under the Constitution. However, their staffers, they are still going to work and they are not getting paid until the shutdown ends.
All right, and then there's the question of SNAP benefits. As we know, are food stamps impacted by the shutdown?
Yeah, so the acting head of SNAP says that they've got enough funding through this month, but if this shutdown continues, they will run out of funding for some 40 million Americans who rely, low-income American families who rely on this program for those food benefits. So when it comes to SNAP, when it comes to WIC, when it comes to other federal programs, really the longer that this lasts for, the more painful it is.